debut of Cam Scatteroo now in the NFL. Looking to the corner and a catch. Touchdown, ASU. Second for Jordan Tyson.
Welcome into our Devil's Digest game preview as Arizona State gets set to head up to Starkville for a Week 2 road matchup against Mississippi State at 4:30 p.m. Arizona time. Before we get into our preview, we want to quickly thank our sponsors, starting with Burrito Express. With the earlier kickoff in mind, make sure you head over to Burrito Express and get the best burrito in the Valley. 9 locations across Arizona, some huge supporters of Sun Devil Athletics, and you could order delivery, you could order in person for pickup. 9 locations across Arizona, some great prices, 100% fresh ingredients and authentic recipes. Make sure you check out Burrito Express on game day. And another thank you to our other sponsor in Santan Ford. No car dealership in the Valley has helped hook ASU players up with cars throughout its tenure, more so than Santan Ford. And with the rise in gas prices as of late, if you're in the need for an electric car, Santan Ford has you covered, new or used. So make sure you head up the 202 to Gilbert and go to Santan Ford for a fresh new vehicle. As always, I'm Justin Lacertosa. That's publisher Hode Rubino. Hode, Arizona State comes into this game as 11-point favorites against Mississippi State on the road. But unlike last week when they were 4 touchdown favorites against NAU, with that sloppy performance, the vibes might not be as high going into this one.
I will agree, Justin. I think this is definitely a game that is not going to do anything in terms of the race to repeat as Big 12 champions, but definitely a game that Arizona State, maybe unlike other two-scored favorites out there this weekend, really do have a lot to prove. And there's really just a lot of reasons to point to. Let's point maybe to one reason that I think a lot of us talked about this week, and that ASU's only 2 losses during the regular season did come on the road. Now, sure, they were perfect at home, and that's something that definitely has to be mentioned when you mention that road record. But nonetheless, I think it's a team that does need to prove that they can play better on the road. It is going to be a hostile environment. I'm not going to get into the whole cowbells and staying at a non-casino hotel an hour and a half from the stadium. But nonetheless, it was also not an easy road trip, maybe compared to some other road trips that are coming up later on in the year. Obviously, the penalties, which goes back to the fact they said it was a sloppy win. Look, I mean, ASU was saying and doing all the right things all week long to try to prove that this is an aberration. But when the rubber meets the road on Saturday, that's how we're going to know whether ASU was truly able to clean this up. And when you play on the road, sometimes you are susceptible to having more mistakes than usual. And again, the road environment here is definitely going to be a more hostile one, maybe compared to others coming up. So really curious to see how ASU does in that regard. And I should be mentioning, in fairness, that it's not like Mississippi State was lights out in the penalties department. They actually had more penalties and more penalty yards than ASU did last week. So they have their own issues to deal with that, and that's another thing that would probably look into this matchup. Then you talk about the passing game. Look, Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson were absolutely on fire in terms of showcasing one of the best quarterback wide receiver combinations in the nation. But fans, and rightfully so, asked, okay, well, where are the other wide receivers? Because we heard all the offseason, and it wasn't just empty talk, that ASU's depth in terms of the wide receiver room, even in terms of the tight end room, for that matter, is definitely better than it was in 2024, and that was not showcased against arguably the worst team you're going to face all year. Sure, at some point you have to take what the defense gives you, and if NAU is going to give Jordan Tyson single coverage all night long, well, guess what? ASU does have the quarterback that can have Jordan Tyson explode for 12 receptions, 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. But that's probably not going to be the case going forward. I mean, there's no way Mississippi State is going to give Jordan Tyson the same treatment that NAU did last week. So now it's incumbent on other wide receivers to step up. Again, if you want to be fair and provide context, if it wasn't for 2 major penalties, you would have either Raleek Brown with a 75-yard touchdown reception, or you would have Malik McClain with a 67-yard reception. And maybe we're not even talking about that aspect right now. But again, the burden of proof is there as well. So there's really a lot of things I think for Arizona State to prove, and I think it's a game that I'm hearing a lot of pundits saying, well, yeah, ASU deserves to be favored, but I'm just not sure if the line of being around 10, 11 points is really reflective of what's going to happen. So, for ASU, I think this is a huge early test, and I think an excellent opportunity to remove most, if not all, the questions I just talked about.
Yeah, Hoden, last year when Mississippi State visited Tempe, ASU had 346 yards on the ground. Obviously, that's going to be hard to replicate, especially in that environment. But also, Sam Levitt only threw for 69 yards in that game, so it's kind of hard to see him only throwing for that amount of yardage. So what do you expect to see out of ASU's offense against Mississippi State?
Yeah, I think when everybody's asking about what does this running game look like without Cam Scadaboo, maybe this is going to be the first litmus test, if you will, because Cam Scadaboo, if you remember, not only rushed for 262 yards, ironically didn't score a touchdown that night, but he had also a net of 262 yards. He did not lose one single yard against Mississippi State. So one thing that I'm not expecting is Mississippi State to run with that three-man front, which absolutely got decimated time after time last year in Tempe. I'm sure they're going to have a much different approach. But look, all jokes aside, when you look at the running game for ASU, that was one aspect that was pleasing, and it's kind of ironic that we were standing here this time last week, and I told you, Justin, that I really felt ASU is going to go for a shock and awe approach against NAU, and sure enough, that did happen because I think they did not rely on the running game as much as they should have. And when I did ask Kenny Dillingham in his Monday press conference, he did admit that looking back, that was probably not really the right approach to take. You should have ran the ball more, especially when you talk about exotic defenses that the Lumberjacks were throwing at you. Well, you shove it down their throat. That solves the exotic defense problem real fast. So I think that ASU is definitely going to run the ball more, especially on the road. I think a strong running game is one of your biggest allies. Kyson Brown and Malik Brown definitely prove that they can do that. They're also threats out of the backfield if you are going to stack the box. And Kanye Udo didn't get that many opportunities, but the opportunities that he did get, I think he did show quite a bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see also a heavier dose of Kanye Udo than what we saw last week. But in terms of the passing game, and again, not to belabor the point, the ball really has to be spread around. I don't see Mississippi State just deciding they're going to do single coverage on Jordan Tyson all night, and whatever happens. If you look for the other wide receivers to step up, and especially also the tight ends, Shaman Meter, Kamari Anderson. We saw even going back to spring practice, let alone fall camp, that there are very, very capable wide receivers, and I think they really can provide a lot of challenges to Mississippi State. The Bulldogs defense is kind of interesting because almost like an amoeba that really can shift shapes, go into a lighter front like they did last year, which again, I don't know if they're really going to repeat that approach, but maybe Kyson Brown or Malik Brown and Kanye Udo are going to make them rethink that approach pretty quickly. And also, we go between that front and also going between, dropping extra man in coverage, maybe being a base nickel in a lot of snaps, just because they're afraid of the threat of Jordan Tyson and want to throw as many defensive backs at him. So I think this Mississippi State defense is, one of the better defenses obviously the ASU is going to face. And even though NAU gave all kinds of fits to ASU last week, this is definitely going to be a better unit, quality-wise, depth-wise. So I think the ASU offense, even though last week did not play a horrible game, but again, we talked about some of the issues that they did showcase. I definitely need to step up the game, really, to get more players involved and really show Mississippi State and even future opponents that this is not really a one-trick pony offense where it's just Sam Levitt to Jordan Tyson and maybe some other players are really fighting for scraps. So a balanced effort by this offense, not only between the run and the pass, but also the distribution of the carries and the passes, I think is going to be imperative for ASU. I think it's something they're capable of, but just like a lot of things to fix from last week to this week, that's really need to show that it can be done on Saturday.
Yeah, and this is a Bulldog offense that's going to go. They're going to play fast, still led by quarterback Blake Shapen. And against Southern Miss in their first game, they had 277 passing yards, 188 yards on the ground. A very balanced offensive display with this ASU defense against NAU showed its worth. What do you expect to see out of ASU's defense against this offense?
Yeah, I think the ASU defense last week did play fairly well. I know Brian Ward, the defensive coordinator, said that he was happy with 60 out of the 76 plays, and the other plays, there were just way too many explosive plays, both in frequency and also in the effectiveness of them. So that's something that ASU definitely wants to clean up for this week. And again, against an offense that does run at a very, very high pace, that is even going to be, I think, a higher point of emphasis. You want to make sure that you're very, very disciplined. You don't have the quote-unquote dirty eyes. You're not trying to do somebody else's job just because this offense is running at a fast pace. You want to make sure that you're just disciplined on executing your assignment and your assignment only. But I also think that ASU, did do very well in third down conversion. Again, I know it's it's a much different offense that they're going to face this week, but nonetheless, I think that they definitely have some confidence carrying over from last week. I know that the pass rush having only 3 sacks, it was something that fans did point out, but I don't expect a really higher sack number on Saturday either, because I think much like NAU, Mississippi State is going to get rid of the ball, quite quickly. So maybe the opportunities for sacks are not going to be there, but you have to make sure just to limit the explosiveness factor of those passes. And I think Blake Shapen is a very, very capable quarterback. Even in the loss last year, he did display qualities that do make him a dangerous signal caller. But I think for ASU, maybe you take a chance with Blake Shapen and make sure that Devon Booth and Fluff Bothwell do not really get off with the ground game. Again, caliber opponent, Southern Miss versus NAU. I mean, you can make your own comparisons, but against Southern Miss, the rushing game did gain 188 yards. So I think that's definitely a stat that the defense cannot live with, and definitely have to make sure they put a dent in it. But overall, I think this defense did play well last week. They did have some lapses. I think I even said after the game that I feel that their field sessions are going to be much more pleasant compared to what the offense probably endured. But overall, I think this defense is definitely capable of winning the game for Arizona State, and actually might have to win the game on Saturday.
Yeah, and this is a game that might not mean too much in the grand scheme of things of this season, but it's important for Arizona State to make a statement on the road and set the tone for what this team's going to look like in Big 12 conference play. How important do you think it is for the Sun Devils to do that on the road?
Yeah, I think this burden of proof that definitely does exist on this team. Like we both said, just to make sure you can win on the road against a quality opponent. To also make sure that all the issues that did come up against NAU are just going to be really those teachable moments, and not going to be something that does rear its ugly head in some kind of shape or form 2 weeks in a row. I expect this to be a very, very challenging road game, for ASU. I do think that the fact they do have so many returning players, this is the type of game that really does have to showcase itself. I know that any team, in order to win on the road, needs to rely on a strong run game, needs to rely on a strong defense. And if those two aspects are really performing at a high level, I think that you're just more than halfway to a road win. And I think those are two elements that the ASU does have, and I believe are going to showcase on Saturday. But I'm expecting this game to be close. I don't know if ASU is going to cover. I think they're still going to end up with a victory. Maybe it comes down to a game-winning goal by Jesus Gomez. Maybe it comes down to a huge defensive stand in the end. But I expect ASU to win this game 30-27.
Well, thank you, Hode, for all of your insight. We'll be in Starkville to catch all the coverage. So to stay locked in, go to DevilsDigest.com. Follow Devils Digest on Twitter at Devils Digest. Once again, we would like to thank our sponsors in Burrito Express and Santan Ford. And as always, I'm Justin Lestertosa. That's publisher Hode Rubino. We'll talk to you guys in Starkville.